for a long time, people always said, they go, I love your headshots. You just capture something in the eyes. And it took me a while. At the beginning, I used to think, they're obviously the catch light, or it's the reflector, or they're talking about that. But they were talking about life, and they were talking about an essence of emotion or character. And it's always the most common feedback I get is, there's something in the eyes of your shot. And that's the biggest compliment to me, because that's what I strive to get, is that connection.
Graham Dargy here, and this is the Viewfinders Photography Podcast, where we dive into the thoughts of some of the best photographers in the world. Well, I'm here in Dreich, Aberdeen, Scotland, and today my guest is one of my current favourite photographers, someone whose work is having a big influence on my photography right now, Nicholas Dawkes. We'll meet Nick in a minute, but first, how's things? Hope you're well. I'm doing good. I've been busy the last couple of weeks just trying to catch up and get ahead of the podcast, so recording episodes, editing episodes, doing all the back end that comes along with it. Also working on some new ideas for the Viewfinder community that's building around the show, so hopefully I'll have something new to announce on that front very soon. Also, we're just away for a couple of days this week with family, so nothing fancy, but after the last couple of years that we've had, seems like any little change of scene is welcome. So nothing much to report here, but really looking forward to getting that little recharge that we all need. How about you? What have you been up to? I'd love to connect with you, so you can find me on Instagram at Viewfinders Podcast. And while you're on the internet, why not check out the Viewfinders website to find all the previous episodes with some amazing guests like George Steinmetz, Greg Heiser, Valda Bailey, Howard Schatz, Paul Sanders, Audrey Woolard, Mark Wilson, Dylan Nardini, Marcel Van Osten, and many, many other amazing photographers from all over the world. They're all here on the Viewfinders podcast. So check those out on the Viewfinders website, and you can also find out about upcoming live events and everything else connected with the show. Okay, on to this week's episode. Nicholas Dawkes is one of London's best and most in-demand headshot photographers, and is probably the photographer who's influencing my work the most right now. I'll say more about that in the episode, but I was really excited to talk with Nick, get into his work, and, as is always the most important thing on this show, uncover what he's thinking when he picks up the camera. The conversation is quite wide-ranging, covering Nick's background as an actor, how he fell into headshot photography during a Shakespeare rehearsal. We go in depth on a couple of headshot sessions, as well as covering influences, lighting styles, equipment, and so much more. Usually, before I start each of my interviews, I take a screenshot of me and the guest on our video call, which I share on Instagram, and we pick up the interview just as I'm about to take that photo. Hope you enjoy this. Here's my conversation with Nicholas Dawkes. Usually I take a picture. Do you mind if I do a screenshot?
Go for it,
both of us, and then I'll share it on the webs. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. I messed up. I think I pressed the wrong button. Hey, I always press the wrong button on that.
And I don't know about you being a photographer. When anyone says I'll take a photo of you, I freak out and I do this face.
Yeah, that's the one.
I don't know what to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Nick Dawkes, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. Thanks. It's a privilege to be here. Thanks for taking the time. It's great.
It's my privilege. I have to start by saying I've had so many great guests on the podcast, and I've been lucky to talk to some real heroes, but you're sort of my hero of right now. There's never been someone that I've spoken to who's been as pertinent to me in the place where I'm at in my career right in this moment. So I'm really excited to talk to you. Yeah, I just think you're phenomenal at what you do. I'm really interested to unpack some of your approach and just hear about your journey in general. So
good. Well, you might regret trying to unpack my brain, but let's see where it goes. Okay,
no worries. I'm excited, so I'm going to try not to get in my own way and fluff the whole thing. So here we go. Okay, we're talking about headshot photography today. So I thought for people listening, it might be good to start by defining what's a casting headshot, what that is versus a family portrait, an editorial portrait, passport photo. When we're talking about headshots today, what is a headshot and what makes it a headshot? Can you talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. I think this is where it comes down to a lot, with people not really kind of understanding the difference. And I get it a lot with clients who come in, especially younger actors come in and they say, well, it's a lot of money to get headshots done. And my uncle's a wedding photographer and he said he'd do some shots of me, and he did, and then they show me and I go, well, but it's not a casting headshot. I think there's a big difference between a portrait and a casting photo, and a lot of it comes down to it has to be an honest representation of you as a person and as an actor, but it also has to reflect your casting in some degree as well. Especially now in the era we live in now, especially for TV and film, I think a lot of people are getting cast a lot closer to themselves. Whereas 10, 20 years ago, it was more about your craft and being an actor and becoming a character. It's a very oversaturated market. So people have found, and a lot of my clients, a lot of actors are finding actually they are being cast a lot closer to themselves now than they used to be. And that's where your headshot comes in, because you want to reflect that a little bit. And I love when you think back, even 20 something years ago when I started doing headshots, it was still everyone had that one black and white headshot. They were normally crouched in a park somewhere, and it was taken from just above eye line, looking up doughy eyed into a camera. And that was a headshot. It was simple. It was a 10:8 black and white headshot of someone. And it didn't really say anything, but it was just a picture of your face. And I think with the digital means now, and, in the UK, we have Spotlight as our main portal for casting. The way that Spotlight works, it is very image central, and the casting process has become very, very based on your look. And when a casting director is looking at their Spotlight portal, they're just looking at 100, 200 faces on a screen. So for me, it's about capturing an essence of you and your character and your casting, and it's the way I work. And it's kind of, I think for me, it's the forefront of what I do as well. It's not about the technical aspect as much. It's not, I'm a technical photographer, but I don't let that get in the way of actually capturing an emotion or something behind the eyes. And I've got some amazing peers and friends who are photographers who are very, very good, brilliant technical photographers, way, way, way beyond what I could ever be on the technical front. But I look at their images, and as beautiful as they are, I don't always get that message behind the eyes, and I don't get that sense of, I guess, engagement is what we look for as humans. Mm-hmm. We look to trust someone, or it's the fight or flight when we look at a picture of someone. How do we feel? Do we want to run away? Do we want to embrace them? Do we want to try and marry them? What goes on? And that is, I think that's the essence of a good headshot for me, is capturing something that will draw the viewer in and just give them a feeling of some kind. Mm-hmm. It's a long-winded answer, but you're a headshot photographer. And I mean, how do you feel about that question for you? Like, how does it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm newer to it than you are, so I'm getting to that. I think empathy is really important with it. To trust is really important to build a connection. You said engagement. I think that's always the most important thing with a portrait. And I could think of a shot of I think maybe it was Marco Grob. I'm not sure. Someone had photographed Steve Jobs, and it was like the last studio shot that he did. And it's a very simple shot. There's a behind the scenes video on the internet. It's like a 1 minute shoot. You know how these guys get with these high level people. Yeah. But the image is so engaged. And I guess maybe because he was near the end of his life, that was part of it. But that engagement is kind of everything in it. You can have all the technical around it, which we'll talk about as well. But yeah, that's the thing, is to try and engage people. And in the midst of everything that you have to do running the shoot, with the lighting and trying not to trip over things and the tethering, and it's that can sometimes fall through the cracks, but you must always engage people. So it's the most important thing, sometimes the trickiest thing. It might be easier for you. You're a real people person, I think, very outgoing from what I can see.
Well, I've had to learn. It's funny you say about, tripping over things. And one of the things I've learned over the years is never to show the client that anything's going wrong. And I think if you speak to any top photographer, that is always going to be the case. It's, a light falls over and makes a crash whilst the client's getting changed, and they go, "Is everything okay?" And you're like, "Yeah, God, I do that 10 times a day." You never show that something has gone wrong because it puts people on edge. And that's what I've always been aware of. And I think empathy is a great word for that, of putting yourself in the client's shoes and trying to look at everything from their point of view. Because I can be loud and I can be outgoing, but I will never be that. If someone walks in very quiet, I'm never going to thrust that upon them, because it puts them on the back foot. So I've learned over the years to just temper my kind of charisma to what the client's doing when they walk in a room. And then you can warm them up, and then they'll feel a bit more confident. But the funny thing is, and you'll know this shooting actors yourself, that when people ask me what I do for a living, I say I shoot actors' headshots, and they go, "Oh, wow, what a job. How easy is your job?" They love having their photo taken. And I go, "You have to be kidding me." You could take any other, business and sector in the world, and they would prefer having their photo taken more than an actor. Even corporate photography, which I've done quite a lot of over the years, they don't like it, but they quite like being the center of attention in some small way and being on camera, even if they say, "Oh, I don't know." But actors, I think, because the essence of what they do is being other people, when they come for a headshot shoot, they suddenly feel bare and naked, and that they have to show themselves for themselves. And it's a really, really difficult place to be. So the key with any session for me is actually at the beginning, trying to get them to a comfortable place where they trust me. I always want to find out about them on a human level. I want to find out about them. So I always do my research, and I look them up, and I watch their show reels, and I do that level of research. So when they walk in, I'm not just a guy about to take their photo. I have a vested interest in them. And I think that relationship forms quite early in the shoot, so that then they feel that they can open up and they can trust you a bit more. And it just allows you to take the shoot to different places, and they're on board in a way. Mm-hmm. Whereas, if you just come straight in and say, "Right, great, put that red top on, let's go," it's very static. You don't get any real emotion from that, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. All right, we'll come back to the shooting part of it, but I start with I'm interested in people's kind of journey in photography, how they came to it. Do you remember when you first got into photography, or when photography first got into you?
I can remember. So I've always had a camera in my hand, really, from a young age. Lots of filmmaking when I was a kid, stealing my dad's VHS camcorder and then his high 8 camcorder, and just making little short films and things. So then out of that, I actually went to train as an actor. I became an actor. So I was an actor for about 4 or 5 years after leaving drama school, but always continued the filmmaking, mainly because I was a jobbing out of work actor. So, and I had lots of actor friends. So we'd get together, we'd make short films. I'd send stuff off for film festivals. And then I started getting into a little bit of stills photography, and I was on tour with a camera. We were doing just a tech rehearsal, just a kind of dress rehearsal for a Shakespeare, but it was outdoors in a big castle in the south of England. And we had a load of downtime. And one of the actors in the show said, "Oh, do you ever take headshots with that?" And I said, "Well, no, I'd obviously had a couple of headshot shoots as an actor." I said, "No, I could do you some headshots if you want. We've got half an hour." So, I grabbed I can't remember what I grabbed. I think I grabbed some kind of shiny reflective thing as a bounce board, and I took some headshots of this actor down the side of a castle in Kent. And he sent them to his agent, and his agent came back, and he was with one of the top 3 agents in London at the time. And his agent came back and said, these are great headshots. Who took them? Quite like to send some other clients to him. At which point I kind of hit the floor and went, hi, what do I do? Okay. And then obviously off the back of that, all the other actors, having heard that in the cast, all said, do my headshot. So I instantly had about 10 or 15 people whose headshots I had to take. And then I finished that tour, and I thought, actually, I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the interaction. I think on a deeper level, I'd always thought that I would go and train to be an actor, and then at some point I would transition into being a director. Mm-hmm. And there were so many great actor directors that I'd looked up to over the years, and I thought that's the kind of path I want to go down. And then suddenly this whole headshot thing encompassed everything that I wanted to do. I got to create scenarios. I got to direct people. I got to, meet different actors. Every day was a different scene, a different scenario. So it kind of all fed into one thing. And then I kind of also realized that I didn't have to, whereas in the previous past stuff with the short films and things, you had to rely on all these DOPs and art directors and people I had to get on board. Suddenly I didn't have to worry about anyone else. I got to set it up, I got to light it, I got to shoot it, and I got to edit it. And I could have a final product all there that I had creative control of. And it was just a really magical little thing. So that tour, I finished that tour as an actor and I never acted again. And that was it.
Okay.
And I put it out to all my actor friends and said, who wants a headshot? Do your headshot, 25 quid or 50 quid, come to the flat in London and we'll do some headshots. And it just spiraled from there. And then here we are today.
Yeah, that's great. So did you do any other kind of photography on that journey, or you just stayed within the headshot?
I think it's always mainly been headshots, but I think as you do, you dabble in all sorts of bits and pieces over the years. And I've shot weddings and I've shot corporate and product photography. My first studio that I got was in a big complex of studios. So there was hundreds of businesses in the building, and they would come to me and say, "Oh, could you shoot this, or could you?" I remember doing a catalogue for perfume shop one year, and I was sat in my studio in the dark for 3 weeks with, I think, 300 perfume bottles. And it was at that point I thought, I'm not a product photographer. Yeah. I respect product photographers. I think they're incredible what they do, but I need human interaction. I can't talk to a bottle of Dior perfume. It just doesn't answer back to me. So I think every photographer has the same thing. They go through this journey, they try things, you take skills from all of those things, and then you find what you're comfortable in and what your niche is. I was very lucky that the kind of first thing that I fell in love with photography wise has remained to be my favorite thing, but it's taken me various places over the years, definitely.
And then the corporate stuff, you did a bit of that?
Yeah, I do. And I still do every now and again if people get in touch and they want some bits and pieces. I don't mind corporate shoots. I think from what I was talking about before, sometimes going into a corporate environment is quite refreshing. I think they don't carry as much baggage with them. You get actors come in and they've had terrible experiences with previous headshots, and my last headshot photographer did this, the one before this did this. Whereas corporate people come in and they kind of feel a bit flattered sometimes. So it's quite refreshing. I've got one coming up in a couple of weeks. It's just nice to get out of the studio sometimes and go and do a bit of that. But it's generally all actors, really.
Okay, I wanted to dig into developing your own style, because when I see your images, they're very striking. But what I love to see is the behind the scenes clips that you do. I love them. I'm watching them in slow motion, and I'm frame by frame, I'm picking apart what's going on in the background and what all the lights are doing and stuff. And I love that stuff. So I wondered, let me frame it this way. Photography can have a lot of rules, You think of headshot photography particularly, or portrait photography, you're going to have a big softbox over here and a reflector under there, and maybe like a strip light and a background. You're way not working like that. And I think it's so creative. I learned from you how creative you can be in this niche, which seems like a tight niche, but within just that head and shoulders shot, you seem to have a lot of flex. So, I wondered, I guess your style would have evolved over years, but, can you talk about having that creative freedom if you had to give yourself some kind of permission to go outside of just that clamshell kind of thing that is the done thing, or maybe not so much now, but would have been a few years ago. Is my question making sense? Can you talk about if you have a creative journey towards your style?
Yeah, I think because I didn't formally train, I didn't go to photography school, and I didn't, a lot of the stuff I learned, certainly back in the early days, people like David Hobby and Strobist stuff, which I know I think you're a bit of a David Hobby fan, but that kind of stuff, Zach Arias as well was a big inspiration 20 years ago. They were doing all this kind of, mixing flashlight with natural light, which it used to be a lot more that it was you're either studio light or you're outdoors.
Yeah.
And these guys kind of brought these speed lights and this small format lighting into natural light. And I just love that mix. And still now 95% of what I shoot is mixed light, but it's not with any rules or boundaries. I look at an image, I think from an artist point of view, I'm trying to kind of paint something. So I don't think about the technicalities and the format of it. I get a client, I have a picture in my head. I set up the client where I think that light is going to work best, whether it be natural light, and then I'll just add bits around them. And as you've probably seen from my behind the scenes, it's quite, my studio is quite organic. You know, I love using random backgrounds and mirrors and, you know, bits of rusty texture and stuff that I find in skips. I've got jokes with me and some of my other photographer friends that, you know, I'm always the guy rummaging through a skip to try and find a bit of old wood to shoot against and things like that, which I love. And part of me, I think the rebel in me wanted my style to be like that and be more organic, because so many of the photographers that I would watch and admire were all about gear. They were all about spending, you know, 500 quid on this new background, or they've bought this for this much money. And it was all about the cost and what new gear they've got. And I was trying to, I think, rebelliously prove a point that you can do all of that with minimal budget. You don't, it's all about the vision and trying to create the image rather than what gear you're using a lot of the time. So a lot of the stuff I shoot in the studio, it's fairly simple gear. It's speed lights and things like that. It's not overly complicated, but it's about what you do with it and trying not to fall into the format, or like you say, of just a clamshell setup and things like that. It's about trying to create something a little bit different sometimes. And I'm inspired a lot by film lighting as well. And that kind of, that more cinematic style of lighting, I think appeals to me a lot more.
You were mentioned Zach and David Hobby. Any other influences from that time or other times? Because that would be the same area that I learned up in as well.
I mean, there's all those kind of American photographers who were big on social media, Joe McNally and people like that, who I really admired. I think as the years have gone on, I don't look up to people as much, and that's not because I feel that I'm at that level at all, but I just don't. I think I try and forge my own path. I know that certainly back then I was trying to be Zach Arias, and I was trying to be those other photographers, and you could see it in my early style that it was shooting exactly what they're shooting. So now I don't tend to follow many people. I love photographers like you mentioned, Marco Grobe earlier. Like his stuff is incredible. I think his light subtraction is absolutely phenomenal, and that's a real inspiration. So I love photographers like that. And I know, certainly from a UK headshot photographer point of view, you've had John Clark on here. I think he's a phenomenal photographer. What he shoots and the way that he can control light is quite incredible. So his style is quite amazing. But yeah, I think I don't really tend to follow. Like, I feel embarrassed sometimes when people go, "Oh, have you seen so and so's work?" And I think, I haven't even heard of that. I don't know who that person is. Should I know that person?
Yeah, I do understand what you mean, though. I think there's a time you're learning the rules, and there's a time where you're kind of abandoning the rules in a way. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I know I was seeing West Side Story recently, and the cinematographer that Steven Spielberg worked with, I don't remember his name, it's terrible, but he's just phenomenal. Like, Steven Spielberg's worked with this guy for a long time, and like the lights are just in the shot. Like, a lot of the time the lights are just in the shot, and that's that kind of abandonment of rules, I think it's so freeing, you know. So that's one of the things that I really inspired about your work, because there's things in there and around there that quote unquote shouldn't maybe be in there, but the freedom to work and find something that I don't know if you're just having fun, how much you're having fun and how much you're purposely trying to create that distinct style, but it's working, probably both work together, I guess, to move you forward.
There was a time as well when I wouldn't, you know, I wanted nothing distracting in the background of my images. And that's not that long ago. If you jump back, I don't know, 8-10 years, you know, my images were very clean. The idea of having anything distracting in the background was, it felt painful. And again, I think coming from those, photographers I admired, they had very clean shots. And then I think it slowly crept in. And shooting outdoors, I looked at my images when I used to shoot outdoors a lot, and the images I started to like were the ones that had a little bit of something in the background or a lamppost and things like that. And it slowly fed into what I shoot now. And some of my shots are really, really busy, and some of them are really simple and really plain. And I again, going back to the client, I think it's based on what the client wants and what their casting is. And that's why that sitting down with a client and discussing their needs is really important at the beginning of a shoot, because I don't set a single thing up until I've had a discussion at the beginning of the shoot. So while the client's changing or getting their clothes out, then I'll go and set up, because actually I don't have the same setup with everyone. Every day is different. Every shoot is different. And I think for two reasons. A, because everyone deserves something different and they should have a different look based on their casting. But also, I'd get really bored if I shot the same thing every day. And I admire those photographers who have one setup and they just kind of run people through their studio all the time on that one setup, because they're going to be retired in about 3 years, I think, because it's such a simple thing. You could shoot 6, 7, 8 clients a day, but I think I would just get really bored pretty quick, and I would think I would fall out of love with what I do.
Let's jump into the shoot itself. I was wondering what your goals are at the shoot, and I was glad to hear that you have a chat with the client to start with. So, and another thing that I've seen London headshot photographers talk about is people's brand, or maybe it's another way of saying their casting type. So when you're having that chat with somebody at the beginning of a session, what are you really trying to uncover in that chat? Yeah,
I think I use the word brand a lot, because I think it's one thing actors don't think about. They're so busy most of the time, just trying to get a job, but being a creative, they don't think of themselves as a product. And so that's something I try and instill in people, is actually if you went into a supermarket and you saw a load of tins on a shelf, and you got baked beans, cannelloni beans, whatever, all these beans, and then there's a blank one and you don't know what it is, you're never going to pick it. So actually, what's your brand? What are you saying? What's going to jump out on the shelf? And most people, I say most people actually, probably 50% of clients have a rough idea. It's pretty good, but there is 50% who have not even thought about it. And what I actually do is when people book in with me, I've got something on my booking system which sends a survey out to them. And it's just a 7-step survey. So it asks you questions, and it's just tick boxes about what your casting is. And so all of my clients, when they book in, they go through and they do that. So, what's your playing age? What, out of all of these words, and say the 20 words pop up on the screen and you just click the boxes, what describes your casting? What areas do you want to go into? Is it TV and film? So they fill out this thing just to get their brain thinking a little bit, so that when they walk in the door, they've got a rough idea. And that's really important, because like I said, that then dictates where we go with the shoot and how we approach it. Because if you come to me and you say, do you know what, I just want to do commercials, that's all I want to do, I'm a friendly dad and I want to do commercials, then great, we know exactly what we're going to do. We're going to do something bright and clean and friendly and approachable. If you come to me saying I want to be in a Netflix drama, dark, moody, serious, Channel 4 murder series, then that's a whole different look. So it will always dictate where we go with it. And just going back to style, thinking about that, I had a conversation with someone years ago, an older photographer who'd been in it a long time, and he said, "What's your style of photography?" And I said, "I don't have a style." He said, "Of course you've got a style." I said, "No, I don't have a style, because I shoot everything. I'll shoot bright studio lit commercial shots, and I'll shoot dark, moody cinematic shots." He's going, "Well, you have to have a style." And I was adamant. And I think being a younger photographer, this is probably about 15 years ago, I was like, "No, I'm not. You can't put me in a box. I can shoot anything." And as I look to my work now, it is still really varied at what I shoot. But each different sector that I shoot has a style. It does have a style. And you probably see it from an outsider. It's probably easier than me looking at it. And I think everyone finds their style eventually. It just took me a long time to find it and also realize what that was.
Yeah. Gregory Heisler was saying, not in my interview with Gregory Heisler, which I'll always name drop, because we're good friends. But he was saying one time, like, people think of a style as a technique, like that's the technique that you use. But he's saying a technique is a technique. A style is like your fingerprints. It doesn't matter what techniques you're using. Like, for him, he's saying, like, my style will be on that photograph because it's come out of my brain,
Yeah.
And I definitely see that with your work. I mean, whatever you're shooting, and like you're saying, a range of different styles tailored to different people, but it's definitely you.
There was an interesting. I listened to the podcast you did with Gregory, and there was an interesting comment he said about portraits and the difference between a photographer putting their stamp on someone and then just capturing someone as themselves. Capturing, he said it much better than me, but capturing the essence of someone and then capturing the photographer in that person. And it really made me think, because actually a lot of what I do is me in the client. It's me projecting like a director would. I'm kind of directing to get something out of them. So there's always going to be an element of me being pushed upon the client to get what I want from the shoot and from the scene, if we call it a scene. And then going back to your question earlier about, is it, what do you see a headshot being? I think it is something that is it's more controlled and it's more sculpted than a portrait. I think I could take the difference between, for example, Steve Jobs being photographed just before he died. He was a very charismatic man anyway. And I think those characters, those certain people, you can just put in front of a camera and take a picture and you'll always get something. It's the X factor. It's that little bit of enigmatic energy. It just jumps out off the page and you don't have to do anything. Unfortunately, actors, a lot of the time, they rely on a puppeteer. Put them in front of a camera, and a lot of actors will not necessarily have any charisma because they're looking for some kind of direction. It's very rare, because I always start on most clients, I'll start on quite a low key setup, something quite simple just to get a feel for them, and put a lot of people just in front of the camera. They don't give you much. It's almost too stripped back that it doesn't say anything. So I think, for me, I find that I have to project a little bit of me and a little bit of direction on the client in order to get what is a casting shot, rather than just capturing someone being, because them just being doesn't always jump off the page. Not when it's up against all the other actors. They just look a lot of the time a bit bored. If I took a screenshot of you just being right now, listening to me, then it's not the most charismatic shot that we can get. And with a bit of direction, we can get something that feels a bit more engaging. I think that's always really interesting. But, I'd love to just sit people down and capture them in their raw essence, but that's not a headshot.
No, it's a portrait, right?
It's a portrait.
It's a different thing.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you have a different approach shooting a guy than you would shoot a girl. Do you have different boundaries around that, or are you just treating everybody completely unique?
I think that's where a bit of direction comes down. When it comes down to a bit of direction and just the way you interact with those people, I find that there is certain clients that will just put a barrier up straight away. You've probably seen it when they don't give you anything, and no matter what you say, they just give you the same face over and over and over, and it's normally a slightly startled and scared face. I've found over the years, a lot of the time, if you can bring in the clown factor, which is where if I make a tit of myself, you will feel whatever you do will not be as stupid as what I've just done. Okay. And you probably see it in my behind the scenes stuff, just being stupid in front of clients allows them to be stupid, allows them to be who they want. So I find that helps sometimes. If you get those clients that are a little bit more shy, you can have a bit of a laugh with them. You can be a bit silly, and then they loosen up and they end up kind of going, well, actually, this is quite fun. This is not a serious thing. I can loosen myself off. But also, most of the time with clients, I give them characters during the shoot, and that allows them to not be themselves. life in my shots, because for a long time people always said, they go, I love your headshots. And clients come in and say, I love your headshots. You just capture something in the eyes. And it took me a while. At the beginning, I used to think, they're obviously the catch light, or it's the reflector, or they're talking about that. But they were talking about life, and they were talking about an essence of emotion or character. And it's always the most common feedback I get is, there's something in the eyes of your shot. And that's the biggest compliment to me, because that's what I strive to get, is that connection.
So I wanted to ask you about the APHP. Is that the right combination?
Yeah, APHP. Yeah, or we could do the formal, which is the Association of Professional Headshot Photographers.
Yeah,
it doesn't roll off the tongue, but
no, it's because whenever I've been aware of it for a while, and I always in my head it's like the HPH or something. I don't know, but anyway, it's the APHP. So can you talk about what that is and what's good about it?
Yeah, so the APHP was founded in 2016. There was a group back in kind of 2015, 14, 15. There was a kind of group of headshot photographers. We just started to chat a bit on Facebook. I think what happened was we suddenly realized that we're not rivals. There was a whole load of us that had worked. It's a very lonely job being a headshot photographer. You might work with different people all the time, but you're working on your own most of the time. So we kind of started connecting and chatting and talking about stuff, and we realized that we're all in the same game together, and we're not rivals, and that we can help each other and we can support each other. And it kind of grew and grew and grew, and this community grew of photographers, and people that I really looked up to who'd been in the game for a long time. And so it was younger and older, and there was such a lovely mix of people. And then we kind of, this idea was born. Actually, we had the Casting Directors Guild. You have the Professional Managers Association, which is the agents association within the industry. But there was nothing for headshot photographers, which is such a big part of the industry, was headshots. And what we wanted to create really was this kind of, call it a stamp of approval, but something that was a trusted brand within the industry. Because what we were seeing a lot of was actors being ripped off by people who were saying, "Oh yeah, I can do you a headshot. It'll only cost you 150 quid," and they were delivering nowhere near what was a professional level headshot. So by creating the APHP, what it was that actually all the members could say, "Look, I am an APHP member." So agents could rely on that, casting directors could rely on that brand. And then, and what's happened and evolved over the years is that now we have lots of lovely agents and drama schools that will recommend APHP photographers because they know that they're going to get a decent quality professional headshot from our members. And then obviously with that came, we tied it up with lots of other things, and all our members have to be fully insured and all the rest of it. So it's a trustworthy brand, really. But also on the back end was community. It was about creating a community for the photographers. So not only, we do lots of workshops with members. We're just about to release this year's set of workshops where we're going to, we get professionals to come and host workshops, or last year we did a lot of online ones, with some really great people just talking about their work, or actually doing workshops on various things of photography, whether it's technical stuff or, we had a great one with actually a Scottish guy, David, who talked about printing, and what's required in printing and the real technical breakdown, which would bore most people, but as photographers we get quite excited about RGB levels and all the rest of it. So things like that is a great benefit to members too. So yeah, it's grown and grown and grown, and it's become a really beautiful thing. We do a bursary for drama schools. So every year the APHP gives away 25 free shoots to drama schools. So every member agrees to give up a shoot for free for someone in financial need, which has been really lovely, and it's been really well received throughout the industry, just by, students are poor anyway, but then there are some students that are genuinely struggling financially, and when you have to pay £200 or £300 for headshots, it's that's a big old outlet. So that's been really lovely as well.
So I'll put a link in the show notes. People can find out more about that. And it's definitely something that's on my radar as well. Okay, let's jump into the gear round, okay? So when you're picking up the camera, what are you picking up? What camera and lens is your favourite?
So I've just got a R5, which is great. First mirrorless SLR I've had. I've had a few mirrorless smaller cameras, but it's the first SLR mirrorless, which I really love. It's great. It's got eye detection now. I don't have to do any work, which is terrifying.
Is that good? Reliable?
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, I found it quite reliable, to be honest. Okay. I'm not shooting at super low apertures that actually, I'm not a 1.2 or anything. Generally, I'm kind of hanging around f4, so the eye detection's worked really well for me. What is annoying is that they've changed the lens mount on it, and I've probably got 5 or 6 of the older mount lenses, so I've just got a lens adapter on that. But generally, to be honest, my go-to lens would be a 70-200 for headshots, purely because it gives me that little bit of range if I need to get in and out. I can make things a little bit wider, but the compression on it, I've got an 85, which I shoot quite a bit with. But the 70-200 for me, I just love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah. It's a big lens and it's heavy, but there's no other lens that I love as much as that. The 85 I like I like to get in close with that. I don't tend to shoot wider portrait stuff with it. I've got 24-70 if I want to do more portrait stuff. But the 85 I like to get in a little bit closer because it kind of adds a vulnerable edge when you're that much closer.
Yeah.
But the other thing with the 70-200 for me is I don't like to be in people's faces too much. I like to keep a distance. I found over the years that when you're a little bit further back from your client, then they feel a bit freer to give you more than if you're right up in their face. They feel a bit, I don't know, it's a bit intimidating sometimes. I've got friends that shoot headshots on 50mm lenses and they're about a foot away from the client.
Yeah.
I think it's really, it can create a really nice, vulnerable, raw feeling, but it's, for me personally, it's a bit too much in their space. I want to give them a little bit of distance because I don't think in life we're never that close to strangers. I think it becomes a bit, it's in their space too much.
Yeah, not nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the other thing. Like the 70-200 in when we had COVID was great. I could
that's the only
stay as far away.
So
shooting on a 400mm from the back of the room.
Yeah, totally, from the other side of the street. So it's really interesting, like because 85. I always like the 85. When I put it on, it looks right. Like the way the picture looks. But I've been more on the 70-200 the last few months, actually. And there was a guy I was photographing yesterday. I was doing this shoot with some guys to try and figure out a couple of guy lighting setups. And I just had the 85 on because I felt like I wanted that more intimacy, like you suggested. And it was it was sort of okay. But when I took a step back with the 70-200 and really pushed it in, it just brought the picture to life on that particular setup. So, like the compression, and it gave the guy a presence that the 85 wasn't giving him. So it's really interesting how the lens really makes a difference in the picture. It
really does. And I think from one of the other things I strive to get in my shots is that they look like the person. And that's, again, the greatest feedback a client gives me at the end of the shoot when we look through images. They go, oh, they look like me. That's the greatest compliment, because that's what we're kind of striving to do. And I do think the 70-200 for me is the realist looking lens. I think that compression does tend to make people look how we see them every day across a room. Whereas the 85 and the 50s and things like that, when you're up close, you would have to be that close to someone in real life, which we very rarely are. Not to strangers. You might be to your partner or whatever, but I think it just does something to the facial structure. And it's a bit more flattering. I think your face feels so round when you're in close with this kind of like slightly more fisheye feel. I love the photographer Platon. He shoots amazing stuff, and he is a lot of the time he's in real close. It kind of distorts people's faces a little bit, and he's got a real style to it. But yeah, from a casting shot point of view, I think it just tends to feel a bit more real.
Yeah. I love Platon. He's one of my favorite photographers.
Amazing,
He's
right?
just amazing. So what I was going to pick up on there was, you said like when people say it looks like them, something I think I spoke with John about this was people's perception of how they look and how they really look. Can that be a challenge sometimes?
Yeah. I blame the iPhone. The whole thing with selfies has changed the way that people interact with cameras, I've found, over the last 10 years. And the way that cameras flip images in reverse. Mm-hmm. This is what I say to people a lot. When you look in a mirror, you're seeing a flip reverse version of yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's why most of the time when a client sees a photo, they go, that, if you show someone a photo of themselves, they go, oh, I don't know, I look weird. Well, they don't look weird. They look like themselves. Sometimes I've done it in the past where I will then flip it in Photoshop and go, what do you think of that? And they'll go, oh, I like that.
Right.
Well, that looks nothing like you, because in reality, your nose goes the other way and your left ear sticks out, not the right. So we're so used to seeing flip reverse versions of ourselves, it distorts our whole reality. Mm-hmm. And then that mixed with filters that are naturally on everything now, it's really tough. It is really tough. And there is a big divide, I find, between females and males when it comes to headshots, because I think men, we embrace getting older a bit better. Mm-hmm. Certainly from an acting point of view, having lines. My client yesterday, he was so proud of having his grey hairs come through. It was a returning client. And he was like, look, I've gone grey since our last shoot. We embrace that. We love it. And agents, they say to you, oh, it's great. You're looking older. You're feeling more mature. Whereas I think women, even still now, feel, and the industry puts this thing on them that, it's not, you have to grow old gracefully. You can't, you have to look attractive. You have to look pretty. You can't get lines and get wrinkles. And that feeds into the way that people come into shoots. And I struggle a lot with clients and, certainly women, older women who come in and they say, oh, it's great. You can just retouch all my lines out, right? Mm-hmm, yeah. You can get rid of all my bags and you can do this. And I say, we can tweak. I'll help you out a little bit, and I'm going to light you to the most flattering I can. But I want to avoid, my job really is to narrow disappointment. So when a casting director, it's a bit like a dating app. You go, oh, that's nice, swipe right. And then you meet them and go, oh my Lord. Yeah. It's about the same with a casting director. When you walk into an audition room, they look up from your headshot on the desk in front of them and they go, oh, hi. Yeah. Rather than looking up and going, oh no, please, no. It's a really difficult thing. So, it is hard to manage. And I think that conversation and that discussion that I have with clients about their casting and where they are realistically, I think helps to feed that into their subconscious that, yes, you might be getting a bit older and you're not the 20-something old ingenue anymore and your casting has changed, but that is a good thing. Yeah. And you only have to look at TV and you see all these other actors and actresses in your age and casting bracket who are doing really successfully, and no one's trying to make them look younger or look any different. They are who they are. So trying to get that across, and also that your essence and your character is what counts, and it's not about the outside things. I love clients who come in. I had a girl a while back who had she had really sticky out ears, bless her. She loved it, and she said. She came in and she said, look at my weird little pixie ears. Let's show them off. So we did a load of shots with her hair up, with her ears sticking out, because she's like, they're there. They exist. I'm not going to hide them. I've spent years covering them up with hair, but actually people are going to see it. So why not embrace it? And I thought that was lovely. Yeah. And I enjoy those clients that come in, and the clients that come in and say, I've got one eye bigger than the other, and my mouth is slightly drooped on the left. It's a lovely, it's really nice when you can tell a client has sat and analysed themselves in an honest way.
It must be really important for an actor to really know what their face can do, right? I would imagine.
Yeah. And also not just trying to emphasise that it's not about comparing yourself to someone else. You're not trying to look like Tom Hardy, and you're not trying to look like whoever. It's just you are you. And actually, the fact that your left ear sticks out could get you a job, because they like it. It makes you look different.
Yeah.
You know, noses are a big one. You know, big noses. People get so paranoid. Oh, my nose is big though. You can't change it. You could if you had surgery, but don't do it, because actually the nose is the thing that makes your characteristics and your features different from everyone else. Mm-hmm. So you might as well embrace it.
Yeah. Just still on the topic of gear then, I was interested to know about the lighting gear that you have, because I think we touched on it before, but maybe it's a bit of this and a bit of that, right? Could you talk a little bit about that?
It's everything really. So on a daily basis, I'll probably mix shooting. I've got 5 or 6 big Bowen studio lights, if I'm doing really studio lit stuff, then down to just speed lights, because they're so portable and they're so small. Mm-hmm. I just shoot with Bowen's adapters, so I can change out whatever I want to put in front of them, and I can put soft boxes on. But they're small enough and they're low power enough that I can blend with natural light really easily. Yeah, which I love. So if I was to try and use my studio flashes for that, they're just too bright. Mm-hmm. They're too powerful to mix. So the good thing about those small speed lights is I can just get them in tiny spaces, and I can bring them in close or above people without too much stress, and they're low enough power that I can just remotely just power them down. And I just have them on a remote on top of the camera, so I can take it up or down as and when I need it. And also, you know, cut them out. I can just flick a switch and cut out the lights completely if I need to. But then I'll throw in some LEDs every now and again. Mm-hmm. Again, got some small LED panels that I can fit in tight spaces, or coloured LEDs for background sometimes. And then recently, I dug out an old Parcam theatre light, big old orange glowing thing, which has just been lying around for years and years and years. I've got a new bulb for it, and it's 1,000 watt. It's a big old bright thing, but it just creates this amazing orange glow which you can bounce off stuff, and I love that creative thing. Of what took me a long time is when I used to shoot outdoors and shoot studio, and I couldn't get what was different between the two styles. I was in the studio, I was still shooting some natural light, but it just didn't have the same feel as the outdoor shots. And what I realized is that when you're outdoors, you've got light bouncing off 23 different things coming, and some of it's bouncing off orange and some's bouncing green and blue, and people's faces pick up all those different little bits of shadow and light. And when you're in the studio, you have one window, which is creating one constant color of light on a person's face, and you don't get that same feeling of bouncing light around, and it doesn't feel as natural. So I kind of had to learn not to be as strict with, like, here is my one window light, and here is my reflector, and here is this. I started to kind of just fire lights off stuff and bounce things off mirrors, and suddenly you found this new dimension of lighting like you would have outdoors, where it's not just one thing. It's a whole load of different temperatures and brightness coming from all different angles. But it took me a long time. Again, like we were talking about earlier, you're trying to get your head out of the technical aspect of it. Should be, you should have your Rembrandt lighting, 45 degrees here. I just had to get my head out of that space a bit, and allow the light to play around a bit more. But at the same time, always trying to monitor it and have my visual eye that says, that doesn't look right. Why? Oh, I need to flag some light here. Well, that doesn't look right. Why? That's a bit too bright at the back. You've always got that going on as well. But yeah, cutting the strict photographer brain off a bit, I think was the key.
I've got 2 questions follow up to that, but one is, like, do you lay in bed at night and just thinking, I could put this against this and get that thing in the back there, and then that would be a different thing. Oh, maybe I'll try that tomorrow.
No, I think it's more organic. No, yeah, I think I don't tend to overthink stuff like that. I think it does happen a bit more organically. It happens in the moment a lot of the time. Okay. Like as I'm setting up for a client, because I can't anticipate. I say, I've got this great setup I want to do with a client tomorrow. I can't anticipate my client's going to suit that. Yeah. So I kind of, over the years I've done that, but I've then set myself up for disappointment when a client's arrived and I thought, that's not going to suit them, or I can't do that now. So what tends to happen is I'll go, right, I'm going to try this. Oh, do you know what would be really good? I could put that there and that there. And, you know, sometimes I'm setting stuff up and say, oh, just grab a seat. I'm just going to be a couple more minutes because I want to try something new or move things around. Being a headshot photographer, I think, is phenomenal because, you know, you've got a client coming in paying you to do headshots, and providing that you are a good photographer and you know what you're doing, you have the ability every day to test on clients, paying clients. So if I've got a client come in and we're well ahead of schedule and I've got everything I need, I'll throw a completely random new setup in, and it might look rubbish. I might only put a few shots in their gallery, but it gives me a chance to play with something new. And I'm getting paid to do it as well, which is just phenomenal. That never happens in life. But you've got these clients that are really willing to try new things. And honestly, some of the test shots that I've done over the years with clients have been some of the best headshots I've taken.
Okay.
Just through playing and through, it takes a certain client to be able to do that. Because like I said, you have to get the shots you want first before you can allow yourself freedom to play. But it's a really lovely, unique place. You wouldn't get that like being an editorial photographer going in and doing a 10-15 minute shot with a A-list celebrity. You don't have time to play as much. So I'm very lucky in that respect that my work is evolving because I'm being allowed to try stuff. It's good.
Let me ask still just to finish off this segment, and are you doing your processing yourself or do you send that out?
So I've got a retoucher that I send retouching to, but my kind of gallery and my processing I do myself. A lot of my stuff is shot in camera, so I don't do a huge amount of, fluffing around in post-production apart from some skin retouching. So I've got a couple of kind of basic filters that I'll run through stuff. I shoot tethered in the studio, so stuff's coming up on the screen as I shoot. So I might have some kind of import settings that will go on, but that's mainly to reflect. So I've got a Canon profile that I use because I don't like the Adobe one that Lightroom does. I think it flattens everything. So I've got a Canon profile which I've tweaked a little bit, which kind of Canon portrait, which I think is just a bit better on skin and color tones. Okay. But that's pretty much it. A lot of my stuff is done in camera, so it is what you see. All my stuff on Instagram, I haven't really tweaked much, unless it's more portrait stuff that I've put up. But it's the headshot stuff is pretty much as you see. But yeah, skin retouching I'll put out to a retoucher.
Let's go to the round which I call double exposure, okay? If you've still got a few minutes, because I know we're
crack on, yeah.
Okay, so usually I want to ask someone about a particular picture which I'm really into. There's a couple I wanted to talk with you about, and I don't think we'll do them all, but the shoot that you did the other week with a young lady called EJ Golding, she just looks amazing. I mean, that must have just been an easy day at work, but I was interested to ask about the latest one that you put up, because there's a lot of range in that. That's with Jordan Pitt. And then the other one I wanted to ask you about was William Grint, who I think is a deaf actor, which I was really keen to ask how that experience was. But if we go to the latest one with Jordan, the first picture on that sort of mini gallery on Instagram, he looks kind of like a tough guy. The next one, he looks like a sort of school teacher. Kind of, there's a fun and vulnerability about him. The next one, he's back to being tough. Then there's a silly one. It was really cool to get that range out of somebody. I know we've talked about shooting and everything, but to go into that specific scenario, give us an idea maybe of the flow of that couple of hours shoot.
Of course, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, so Jordan, for example, we've shot before together, so I had a kind of good idea of him and his kind of casting anyway. But we sit, and any client that comes in that I've shot before, I'll always kind of get an update. I'm like, where are we at now? So he kind of talked to me about where he's going with it. And he's one of those actors who, I had this chat with him, he is a really versatile actor. So he can play the nerd or he can play the tough guy. And he's kind of 40-ish, but, he's he's a young black actor, and he could easily be typecast as the kind of street hoodie character, and he's from London and stuff. But actually, he plays this kind of softer, nerdy, and the dad thing really well. So there was a really big range there that we could play with. So what I'll tend to do, knowing what the different looks are that we want to get, and having talked about it, client will get the clothes out, so he'll get all his stuff out. We'll have a look at the wardrobe because he's had to think about it. And he said, well, this is my kind of like friendly dad look, and this is my street hoodie look, and this is whatever. And then based on that, and having all those outfits and having in mind what we're going to shoot, we'll go, right, well, we're going to start with this look. So like I said earlier, I'll start with something a bit more neutral. So we'll just start with something really simple and neutral. And then we'll kind of roll through that shoot, bearing in mind all those different scenarios and those different castings. So just going back to what you were saying, the first one is a bit more neutral. It's a bit more just plain canvas background. I've got some natural light. In fact, that's all natural light. It's just window with a reflector behind him. And it's just kind of essence of him, bit of vulnerability in there. The next one was nerdy. It's like office nerd guy. You know, it's kind of a bit geeky. He wears glasses as well, so that kind of helps. And then after that, we went to this kind of bit more dangerous. But every time I'm going through these scenarios and saying to the client, right, go and change into this. We're doing this next. I'm just changing the studio around, and I've got my studio set up so that actually everything is kind of set upable in a couple of minutes. We can just move some bits around, and then I kind of know where I'm going to shoot. So I just approach it essentially on however many different characters we shot yesterday, seven characters, 7 different setups that we're just going to hit, and everyone is reflecting that. So I'm not going to put him in the kind of like nerdy shot, and then I'm going to try and get him as a mean nerd, I'm just going to get him as friendly nerd, because I don't need a mean nerd, and I don't need those different aspects. I just want to capture that one look. So I'll kind of shoot a load of stuff along those lines, and then we're done, and we can move on to the next one. So yeah, trying to take it on that basis. But it just to kind of cite the other one that you'd mentioned about EJ Goddard, like she was amazing, and she had such a strong look. She had this bright red hair. She had all these piercings and things, and it just worked. And it's this idea we were talking about earlier about both those clients, in fact, and we'll talk in a minute as well about the shoot I did with William Grint, because all 3 of those clients that you cited all had a charisma about them. They all had something unique, and they had that little bit of X factor that makes my job easier, because they're giving me a whole load of stuff. And a lot of the time I'm pulling people down. I'm saying, okay, give it a little bit less. It's okay. You know, their image is so strong. EJ Goddard, she had this crazy red hair, like bright red hair, and she's a beautiful girl. So actually I didn't have to do much to make her look exciting. And you do get those clients sometimes that are, they're slightly beige. They're kind of generic looking beige people who you go, right, how can I make this look exciting now? I'm going to do some exciting lighting, or I'm going to get you wearing some clothes that make you pop and make you stand out. And you end up having to kind of roll them in glitter a little bit to get them looking a bit more dynamic. Whereas, those people just... And you've probably picked them out for that reason, because they do stand out and they do look exciting. But again, the range comes from that ability to play as well, because I do have clients that I don't capture as much range with, mainly because I'm really struggling to get the first look. I'm spending like half an hour just shooting the first look with them, because they're just not giving me what I need. And by the time I get it, I move on to the next look. There's another half an hour of just trying to get that next look. So you're really having to bring people out your shell. Whereas, Jordan yesterday, we were finished early. Like we were done we were probably only shooting for about an hour and a half. We managed to get 6 or 7 looks easy. So it's a really easy one. William Grint was incredible a few weeks ago. So it's the first. So I've shot deaf actors before, but they're lip reading deaf actors. Whereas William brought an interpreter with him, which I was really nervous about, and I was really dubious about, because deaf actors, there's a certain amount of my silliness and little words I say, and I might throw things at people mid-shoot just to get them to laugh or break it up. And I was worried I was going to lose any of that because I've got a camera in front of my face, so you can't see me saying things. I mean, he couldn't lip read. He needed an interpreter. It was probably by far one of the easiest shoots I've done this year. It was just unbelievably easy. And I think 2 reasons. A, he was just really good and he had a lovely charisma on camera, but I could just give him a look and he would perfectly mirror what I did.
Okay.
I would squint my eyes just ever so slightly and he would do exactly the same amount of squint because he was a visual person. Because he didn't rely on sounds. He didn't rely on direction like that. He relied on looking at people and seeing what they wanted to do. So I would lower my camera and just give him a look with my eyes and he would do exactly what I wanted to do. Or I would just turn my shoulders slightly and he would turn his shoulders. So the interpreter was incredible and she was great to have there, but I almost didn't need her. And it goes to show how some actors, and you know, you have able hearing actors who have the same thing. They just have an ability to mimic and mirror and see what you want them to do and actually encompass that in their body. It was just incredible. So what went from me being quite nervous and worried about how the shoot was going to go and how the flow was going to go turned into just, it's just so easy. It was incredible. So I was really happy.
That's so interesting. I was usually at this point, I would flip the question back to you and ask if there's a really memorable shoot or moment from your career. I don't know if that's a good answer that we've already had, or if there's anything else.
Yeah, I think it is. I think mainly for that reason, the fact that from what I thought was going to be a really painful and hard shoot, just turned out to be a really beautiful experience. Yeah,
that's amazing. Okay, bringing it home. Final round is motor drive. Okay, quick fire questions.
All right.
Okay.
Bring it.
All right. This one I know which way you're going to go. Wide angle or telephoto?
Telephoto.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
New question for this week. Stay up late or get up early?
Stay up late.
Expensive lens cloth or corner of your shirt?
Corner of your shirt.
Go-to emoji?
Puzzled face with a monocle.
Okay. Another one. Okay, kind of came up earlier, but what's the best photo shoot music?
Cinematic for me.
Okay, so you're looking for some Hans Zimmer, or which way you going?
Yeah, stuff like that. I've got a playlist of all sorts of random stuff I've kind of accumulated over the years. But the reason I always say cinematic is that you put it on and it creates emotion. You don't have to do anything. So a lot of stuff like period. So everyone who comes in wanting a slight period drama look, put cinematic music on. I don't need to say a single word. Okay. They put it into their body and the way they stand. It's incredible. So yeah, that would be my go-to. Other than that, it would probably be some Motown or soul music because I don't think you can offend anyone with that.
Yeah.
That tends to be my like walk in the room music when people arrive because everyone feels a bit upbeat and a bit happy with that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. What's a weird thing I can find in your camera kit or in your studio?
Oh, you can probably find loads of weird stuff in my studio.
It's like the weirdest thing you use day to day, because I know you use some different kind of stuff.
Yeah, like one of my go-to backgrounds is an old whiteboard, which I found in a skip. Again, lots of things found in skips. Big one, massive one. So it's about 4 foot by 3 foot, whatever. It's huge metal sheet, which I've got hanging from a pentagraph in my studio, which I can move around. But one side where it was white, I've now painted it blue, but the back side where it was stuck to the piece of board that it was on, so it's a sheet of metal essentially that I've taken out. But the back side where it was glued on and peeled off, it's kind of this grey colour, and where all the glue was, it's all a bit dirty and it's just lines and stuff, and you'll see it in loads of my shots, so you'll probably think it's a canvas background, but it was just the back of this whiteboard I found in a skip, took apart and hung up.
Yeah, so. I love it. When I was talking to John Clark, he was talking about the background that he used, and he was saying, "Oh, it's a mirror or it was reflective or something." And
it's perspex mirrors, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't understand. I was just like, "Oh yeah, okay," but I didn't really understand it at the time. But I was just sort of, I didn't want to embarrass myself by not knowing what he was on about. But yeah, it's seeing, and now I know, and I just get the value of just having that funky kind of stuff in the background. it's awesome. I'm right into it. So I'm gonna go dumpster diving for whiteboards.
Yeah,
the next opportunity, because that's the secret of your success, right? So okay, maybe you can name a photographer we should all know about, or just a great photographer in your niche or out with.
I think I mentioned him earlier, but Marco Grove, I think, is just incredible. I think he just the way he captures something from people at the same time as doing just these most amazing dynamic lighting setups and flagging, I think, is beautiful. He's got such a lovely understanding of sculpting the face, which I love. Well, you know, one of my peers is a guy called Adam Hills, who's a headshot photographer, and I just think he has an amazing technical understanding of photography, and a bit like me is always evolving and changing and trying stuff out, and I kind of really respect the stuff he does. Who else? I'll tell you a guy I love, and I just think is just a wonderful human, and we actually did an APHP chat with him, is Art Schrober. I don't know if you know his work. So he's an LA editorial photographer, but you should go and follow him, because he does the most amazing behind the scenes posts on Instagram. So he'll post his cover for whatever TV series he's just shot, or posters and things like that. And then his next post will be a full breakdown of all the kit they used, where they shot, how they did it. And having done the talk with him last year, just the most lovely, giving man ever. Okay. You should get him on the podcast, because he was just incredible.
He's actually on my list for the next batch. Because I'm same as you. Just it's amazing work.
And I think he's just, what was lovely, he's very giving in what he does, and I think that really struck home with me. And I think off the back of that, it's probably because I only really started doing lots of behind the scenes last year. I think that probably inspired me a little bit to do more of that kind of thing.
Have you found with the behind the scenes stuff that you have been doing, does it make any difference in your career in terms of?
Do you know what? It's made a huge impact on clients and clients booking in, because they see that and they think, oh, actually, this looks quite fun. This is fine. Headshots are not what I thought they were. Yeah. So it's made a big impact on that front. And I think also, like, you get other photographers, and it's funny because I follow lots of headshot photography. You see people kind of copying styles and doing bits with, you know, mirrors in the background and stuff. Oh, okay. You've obviously been watching that, and you see their style starting to change and evolve. But I'm fine with that, because actually a lot of the stuff I do is about my interaction with clients. You can't steal that. Yeah. You can take all there isn't really an original idea left. Plagiarism is the best form of flattery. Like, you can take my ideas. I probably stole them off someone else originally. So, I don't mind that, but I know that they can't mimic my business model and how I treat clients. So, it makes me, if I see everyone shooting what I shoot, I'll go and change and do something else. It kind of keeps you on your toes a bit. But the giving and the sharing, I think, is a big part of it for me. Funny enough, funny story. When I started doing more behind the scenes stories last year, my wife, I'd come over from the studio and she'd go, "What the hell were you doing today in the studio?" And I go, "What do you mean?" She goes, "That video was nuts. Like, did you have too much coffee?" And she said to me, she went, "I don't know if you should be posting these, because people are going to think you're a weirdo." And I went, "I am a weirdo." They need to know what they could expect. So I like the idea that you see my behind the scenes and the madness that happens in my studio. And you kind of, like, if you like it, come for a shoot, because that's how we're going to be, and we're going to muck about, and we're going to have fun with it. If you want to take yourself super serious, don't come with me, because I'm probably not the right photographer for you. Yeah. Because I like to play around and have some fun with it. Yeah.
You can rely on your wife for blunt honesty, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Though, what I like about your BTS behind the scenes, and I'm trying to do it with my own, is because I'm putting time into trying to make the behind the scenes. I'm not doing it well, but I know I'll get better at it. It's catered to clients. It's not catered to photographers. It's not like, so I'm shooting with an Ellen Chrome 1 today and a 60-inch umbrella. That's for a photographer, but you really need to reach clients, and I think your one, it cuts right through. It's brilliant. Last question. You'll be glad to know at 90 minutes here.
That's great.
When do you feel at peace with the universe?
Probably, so I'm a snowboarder, so probably on the top of a mountain. on the top of a mountain when all you can hear is just a shh, shh. That's a very, very, very happy place for me.
Totally appreciate it, Nick. This has been fantastic.
Yeah,
I'm sure people will get a lot out of this, and if they didn't, at least I did. So it wasn't a complete waste of time. But so appreciate your time, and all the best. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thanks for listening. Follow Nick on Instagram to see his amazing photography and his behind the scenes videos that we spoke about, which are so rich and give you so much information about what he does and how he's doing it. Links to everything we spoke about are in the show notes, and if you enjoyed this episode, then check out my conversations with Gregory Heisler and John Clark. That's it for now. Take care, enjoy your photography. I'll see you out there.